Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to All Things Brunswick. It's Tuesday night. I'm Mary Stillwell, and my co-host,
Todd Osborne.
We're happy to be with you this evening. So how was your week?
Busy.
Yeah.
Very, very busy.
Yep. We are kind of busy these days, aren't we? It's kind of crazy, but lots of things going on in the county, and Todd and I are researching some things and looking into things, and I think that we would be happy to present you with these things when we have the facts. I don't want to just talk about them without the facts. So, in the meantime, there are a couple of things that I have been pondering on for a while. And my main thing, I've been thinking about it because we had Steve Rice and that lovely couple from St. James who came and talked with us about soldier suicide. And ever since that, I have felt that we need to make a change in our military.
I agree.
I mean,
It's been under attack for quite a while.
Yeah. You know, Brunswick County is home to 14,490 veterans. Brunswick County. Mm-hmm. Does that not amaze you?
Doesn't surprise me a bit.
I was blown away when I saw that number.
Well, think about it. We have Fort Bragg's right up the road. And a lot of people retire through Fort Bragg.
True.
And if they want to go to the coast, it's a whole lot cheaper to move to the North Carolina coast than it is, say, Florida or places like that. So,
well, you know, several things, in my estimation, have happened even since World War II that have depleted our military. We probably had the largest service-related military in World War II than we've ever had.
Yep.
And it's sad what we have become.
Well, unfortunately, I blame Washington for a lot of it.
Oh, of course. You know, let's go back to 1990 when Bill Clinton decided he was going to realign, quote, and close, quote, bases. And there was no rhyme, no reason to how he did it. None whatsoever.
Did you know Fort Bragg was on the original list and stayed on that list for almost 10 years?
I am not surprised.
But think about it. That's our largest military base.
Oh, it is the largest in our nation.
Mm-hmm. And it's also, they have a little referral to them that when America calls 911, Fort Bragg's the one answering the phone.
Right.
And so anything to damage that base, it's like unreal.
I looked up some stats on that. We have 57,000 service members at Fort Bragg, 23,000 dependents, and 11,000 civilians who work there.
Mm-hmm. And that's not counting all the support contractors.
Exactly.
When they train for Robin Sage Special Forces operations and all, that's all done through contractors. So,
and don't the various branches send like reservists in and out?
Yep.
Constantly.
Their National Guard gets called in.
Yep.
They also do operations. We call it window rattle, and what it is they'll have like the Marines from out in Yuma, Arizona, will come into Fort Bragg, and they have military maneuvers. And that's when they start firing off the howitzers, and it rattles every window in the county, actually several counties.
I spoke with somebody who mentioned that, and she said it didn't matter to her because she knew that if that was going on, that she was protected. I thought that was neat. Yep, I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
Well, you know, back in 1990, when Bill Clinton decided he was going to close 100 bases. Okay. From then until 2005, our government closed 350 bases.
Originally, it's supposed to be every state has to have a base, and that was if the event that someone tried to invade us. One of the things a lot of people don't think about, I believe it was Admiral Yamaguchi, when they signed the peace treaty with Japan at the end of World War II, a news reporter asked him, said, well, why didn't you go ahead, after you crippled us at Pearl Harbor, why didn't you go ahead and invade California? And his response was, because your people are armed. And that's public record. I mean, the reporter asked the question. And our military had always looked at it from a military-only standard, that if they had invaded California, they didn't believe they could have stopped the Japanese until the Mississippi River.
Right. I have heard that.
But the Japanese saw it as, hold it, all their people are armed. So we're not only fighting their army, we're fighting the people too. And they didn't think they'd ever make it out of California.
Right. But it's unfortunate because California was the hardest hit with the base closure. I mean, he just whacked them right out of there.
And that's our border.
I know. Well, my home state, Maine. I lived right next door to the largest SAC base in our nation, and he closed it.
Yeah.
We were the base of the B-52 bombers during the Cold War. And it was I think maybe the third largest base in the nation, but it was the largest SAC base in the nation.
Here's one of the things a lot of people don't seem to understand. A lot of people think, what do we need long-range bombers for? We don't use them anymore. Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, yes, we do.
You may remember all the news hype about the Moab being dropped in Syria. Well, that was a long-range bomber. It took off and landed in the United States, but yet it dropped its payload in Syria.
Yeah.
So people saying we don't need these things aren't paying attention.
Well, I know. And I think some people want to know, they want to be made aware, but others would rather not. So, and that's okay. It's, whatever floats your boat. I just couldn't get over the fact that he disposed of these military installations, especially Loring, after our government and our tax dollars had built a brand new hospital, a brand new commissary, a brand new headquarters, and several dorms for the servicemen. And do you know where those buildings are today?
Sitting there rotten.
No, they're in the ground already. They bulldozed them down, which made no sense to me.
And here's something I have issue with that is, why couldn't those be used for like our homeless veterans?
Exactly.
They could have stayed there. That's
Now,
a place for them to live.
If you go on Google and you look it up, Loring Air Force Base, it will say, oh no, after they closed the base, they brought in the Air Force Commerce, okay? Air Force Commerce is DFAST, folks. DFAST is how we pay our service people. And most of these individuals that work up there for DFAST work from home. We have the largest arch hangar sitting on that base right now on the runway. And it's going to go to ruin. They've done nothing with it. The engine they traveled coal from Limestone after they met the B&A in Limestone and CSX, and they traveled it onto the base to use for various things because they did use coal. When they closed that base in September of '94, they left that engine sitting out. It is still sitting out.
Just
on that
rusting
base.
away.
Yes. That's our government at work, folks. I happen to be a member of the Loring Air Force Base Museum. We have a museum that some friends and I and several people put together and have worked at. And every summer we have something special. My friend Cuppy Jondro, she is something else. She runs that, and she goes to all kinds of lengths to do something special. And she reaches out to the folks that were stationed there, that, started their careers there, ended their careers there. And last year, excuse me, not last year, the year before, she was able to bring in an old B-52. They flew it into Loring, came down the runway, and I have to tell you, I cried.
Thing's massive, isn't it?
They're humongous. But I just because of the huge failure in what they did, and they devastated Aroostook County.
Well, and there's a human element to this, too. When they were doing all that rifting, I know I met several people that got rifted out of the Air Force, and one guy had 18 years in.
Yeah.
He was 2 years from retirement, and they said, well, we don't have a position for you. You're out. 2 years from retirement.
Okay, so Todd, let's look at the other side of the coin. So we have servicemen coming back from Afghanistan.
Yep.
The same way that they came back from Vietnam. Now, Vietnam was a little different because there was a draft, okay? Your life expectancy in Vietnam was 1 year, 12 months, 11 to 12 months. So what they did when they sent somebody over, you were deployed only 1 year, okay? And then you came back home. But several of our service personnel went back many times.
Yep.
And they live now with PTSD. And I think that, I've never fought in a war, but I think I would find it difficult to fight in a war that made no difference one way or the other. That country is still communist. And to see the terrible things that they saw, and then to come home and not be thanked was a terrible thing. So we have the same issue, except for we do thank them, and we thank them for their service. But they have gone to Afghanistan, a war that makes absolutely no difference. Nothing is going to change, not a thing.
Well, and part of the problem is, too, is you can't fight a war playing by rules when your opponent has none.
Exactly.
You're going to lose.
We're talking about third world countries here,
And
And
the rules don't matter. Human life does. Just look at Hamas. They use citizens as human shields.
Exactly.
How do you fight that? Because if you accidentally take out one of the citizens, then you're a terrible person for trying to go after the evil that's among them.
Yep.
So it's a no-win situation, and we've kind of made it that way.
And we have no base left in Vietnam. There is no place to go if you were left behind and you're finally coming out of it. There are still 1,244 service personnel missing that have not been accounted for from Vietnam.
And we have DPAA in Hawaii, and that's their whole mission. It's a joint force operation, and what they do is they travel around. They'll even go to Normandy. If they have a report or they think they found something. They go to Vietnam, they've been to Laos, Korea, you name it. They'll go anywhere in the world if they think they can possibly find.
Thank goodness that there's somebody.
That is still going on, and it receives a annual budget, to do those missions. But you got to keep in mind too, though, some of those missions you're going into a communist country.
Exactly. I mean, it's not like they can just walk in there and go to Saigon and say, "Hey, you got any Americans here?"
Yeah, we're gonna excavate the side of this mountain because we know one of our aircraft crashed here. We need to see if there's any remains. And the problem is, though, is time is against them because bones do decay because the soil there is extremely acidic.
I know. Well, yes, because it's like a huge rainforest.
Yeah.
So I just, that I guess maybe if I were to make a list on the things that irritate me with this whole thing is the fact that 58,000 service people lost their lives in Vietnam for no reason. There's still 1,200 missing. And to be truthful, 58,000 is not accurate because of the ones who came home and took their own life.
Yep.
And I'm not sure that they kept track of that.
No, they didn't.
So we lost an awful lot in that conflict or whatever, because there were several presidents since who wouldn't refer to it as a war. So in my estimation, number one on my list would be the politics just are horrid, because that's what it was all about.
Oh yeah, and there's unfortunately a lot of that still going on today. In World War II, World War I and World War II, basically the presidents and the Congress at the time turned it over to the Joint Chiefs and said, "We got to win. We can't afford to lose."
Well,
and as long as they did that, we won wars.
I know. World
But
War
as soon
II
as
was-
politicians got involved, my dad used to say, and he was in all three, he said we were 0-1-1 because they tied in Korea and lost Vietnam. And so a lot of people don't get that, but because Korea is just an armistice, that war is still ongoing.
Well, something that I just amazed me, how terribly cunning the Viet Cong were. I mean, the horrid things that they did to our service personnel.
And what they did to their own people.
Oh, I know. But the service personnel that they feared the most was the South Koreans. And it stated that, and I guess I kind of knew this because if you read anything, they are the service that continually keep doing what they're doing, so to speak, so that they're well up on everything that they need to fight a war, and they're very, very built very well to fight, but they scared the heck out of the Viet Cong, and I didn't think anything ever scared the Viet Cong.
Well, they were fighting for your life, and when you're fighting for your life, there's no rules.
Right.
You're going to do whatever it takes to survive.
Yeah.
And that's where the fear factor came in, because they would do anything to survive.
Yeah. But I mean, that was interesting. I mean, they were afraid of our service personnel too, but they were deathly afraid of the Koreans.
Yeah. Well, and two, they didn't play by the rules as much as we did.
No.
And unfortunately, that's why a lot of our soldiers got bad reputations for stuff they didn't do.
Right.
It wasn't our troops that did it, but that's who the media blamed.
Right.
So,
and I think maybe, I mean, I continually read about this, and I've not read as far about the war in Afghanistan, but I'm sure that there has to be one type of service personnel that they disliked more than the others, but I've not found that out yet. But I find that to be very interesting. And you spoke about World War II, my dad was in World War II. He was in the Battle of the Bulge. And Daddy got the Purple Star, and he got other awards for saving 2 men's lives. And he told me that, they never, even our dads and our grandfathers never spoke of the war.
No.
But what they did come across with that they felt was very important was the fact that these were their brothers. They weren't just the other soldier or the, but their brothers. And that's how they fought the war.
Yeah, they had to. They had to depend on each other.
Exactly.
And it does. It creates a bond that normal society doesn't create. There's a big difference when your life's at risk.
Yes.
Or the guy beside you's life is
exactly.
at risk.
And so how could you not think of it as your brother, you know? But another interesting fact was that the youngest serviceman killed was in World War II, and he was 15. And he was from North Carolina. He was from Goldsboro, North Carolina.
That's not surprising.
Yeah, because I guess they didn't look into it that much back then, so you could go lie about your age.
Well, they didn't have the records
Right.
like they do now.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, back then, if you had a birth certificate, you were a rarity.
Right.
Most of them were documented in their family Bibles.
But you know something? To me, that does my heart good because I know that all of these guys that fought in World War II, they wanted to. They wanted to defend their country. And for a 15-year-old boy to go and give up his life, I guess maybe I'm too sentimental. I don't know, but this stuff really affects me. It does. And because I love my country, and I just hate it when,
If we could get politics out of it, we'd be a lot better off. And the thing is politics is, some of you may have heard about 6-8 months ago, they were talking about how the recruiting shortage for our military. And there's actually a lot of reasons why there's that shortage. One of the things they did, and this happened, it started in 2009. I can't remember when they finally completed it. But used to be if you went into the military, after 20 years, you got a full retirement.
Right.
Well, they don't have that anymore. They get a 401k that they can draw when they get in their 60s.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So they've taken that benefit off the table.
So what about if they want to leave and they went into the service early and they want to get out and go to school?
They do. The military does have programs. One of them's Green to Gold, and it's where you can go from enlisted. They'll send you to college, pay for the college, and then when you come out, you're commissioned an officer. In fact, one of my neighbors in Hope Mills is doing that right now, and so they have that program. There are other programs you can go and complete your degree on, do online courses and everything. And once you have that degree, then you can put in for and get to become a commissioned officer or a warrant officer. My son, that's how he did it.
Okay.
And
tell me about your son, Todd. What branch is he in?
he's a Black Hawk pilot in the United States Army.
Oh, tell him thank you for his service.
And he spent 4 years at DPAA. He's been to Korea, Laos, all these places looking for the remains and all. That's how I know about the program.
Yeah,
But it's a pretty awesome program.
I'm sure.
They would find, someone would discover some wreckage from an aircraft.
Yeah.
And it goes through a pretty intense process before they actually send people out. But then he would, once they had the coordinates and everything, he would help prepare the operation, and they'd go in. And a lot of times they were excavating mountainsides.
Wow.
Everybody on that mountain had a rope tied to them so they didn't fall off.
Sure.
And
Well, look at the terrain in those places.
Oh, yeah.
Very scary.
Yeah. It said it was the first place he ever tried snake. because they would hire some of the locals to help them as guides
Yes.
and all, and they caught and killed him a snake and were cooking it up, and he traded an MRE to try out a snake.
Oh, gosh.
He says, "Well, they eat it. Why can't I try it?"
Yeah.
So he did.
You must be so proud of him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He has done amazing things. I've seen the military change a lot of people. There's people I went to high school with, and I'm like, man, they're never going to amount to nothing if they don't get their act together. And they'd go in the military, and guess what? They got their act together. And some of them have become officers.
Right.
But recently, with the trying to recruit the people, the retirement's a biggie. That's huge. That they did away with that. But they also, a lot of this social, I don't know what you want to call it, stuff that
Yes.
they're, it's a military, it's not a social experiment.
Exactly.
And they keep trying to inject that kind of stuff into it, and that's hurting recruitment tremendously. These people know they're signing up. They may never see combat, or they may see combat multiple times. So you have to keep that in mind. But
And
now what they've done is drop the requirements for how many troops we're supposed to have. So now they can say, oh, we don't have a shortage. No, they just lowered the limit.
I know. It's like making excuses. And on that note, folks, think about that for a minute or two while we pay some bills. And we will come back and continue this very interesting discussion. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, Attorney at Law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you are a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, everyone, to All Things Brunswick. What else have you got for us today, Mary?
Well, you know, we're talking about our military, which I find very interesting. And I looked up some facts yesterday. Our military includes, as of September 2023, 2,079,142 personnel. Okay.
Less than 1% of the population.
The People's Republic of China has 2,185,000.
And they're still classified as a developing nation.
And according to stats, in every conflict or war or anything that everybody has fought in, and by everybody I mean all nations or parts of, the best trained military, they state, in the world is Britain's South Rangers. And then the best Air Force in the world is the United States Air Force. So that I found very interesting. I need to know now what makes Britain's South Rangers so extraordinary.
Well, keep in mind now, I grew up with Special Forces at Fort
Okay.
Bragg. I don't know that I agree with that statement.
Really? Well,
I've seen our guys. I've seen their training
Oh,
and
yeah.
all,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm not putting anything against the Brits. They're pretty damn awesome, and they've had to fight some pretty hard wars. In some regards, they have more experience, I guess, than we do. But I'd put our SF up against them.
Well, and I agree with you. I've read some of the training that, my cousin was Special Forces, and he did 4 tours in Vietnam, and this is something that I think when they sign up for this, they live it, they breathe it. It is their entire life. Because he was not the same kid that I used to ride bike with and, play with as a child. He was very, very strict in regimental in anything he did. And I guess that's because they have to be prepared at all times.
That's one of the things both my dad and my father-in-law kind of instilled in me is I like when I'm in a restaurant or something, I sit with my back to the wall. Those are the kind of practices that they just made every day
Sure.
because that's how they had to fight. You were always, never go into a building you don't know an exit strategy.
Right.
Never have your back to the door. Things like that. And people might not think much of it or think of it at all. But a lot of these people that came back from Vietnam and all,
They did.
they practice it everywhere they go.
Yes.
It was funny because my father-in-law and I used to kind of argue over who was going to have their back to the wall.
I know my husband didn't. He didn't sit out in the open. So.
Yeah.
And my husband was on Blackhawks and others, Hueys and you name it, in Vietnam. So, but it's interesting. I can't believe that China, well, I guess I can believe it. They have more military personnel than we do. And
That's their biggest expenditure
I know,
for
but
their entire country.
I don't believe that this has always been the norm, okay?
No.
Because we had millions in World War II. We had the largest military ever.
The first hit to our military was after Vietnam when they started attacking
Yes.
soldiers when they returned and all.
Yes.
That kept a lot of people out. Well, now we're into the younger generations and they're looking at what's my benefit from this. A lot of people
Exactly.
will graduate high school this year and go in the military simply to get their education. And I have no problem with that. Because you can go out of high school, you can go in the military, and the military pays
Right.
your college education.
Yes.
And the thing is, if you go in an MOS in the military that matches with that your college, then you're also getting practical experience as well as the education. So even if you only go in for 4, 6, 8 years,
Right.
when you get out, you have the degree and you have practical experience in that degree, and that puts you way above people just graduating a traditional college.
I think the best education that young people get going into a branch of the service is discipline and
Structure.
And structure, yes, but we need so much more discipline in our country.
It also teaches you honor, even though that's not a deliberate teaching. It's the honor and respect
Yes.
for your fellow soldiers. You see it especially in combat veterans. It's really, really tight there.
Yeah.
That it's just a natural occurrence when you get in situations where you're having to fight for survival with each other. It creates that bond, like we were talking about earlier,
Right.
brotherhood. But it also teaches you a certain amount of respect and understanding for others, which actually helps you better deal with issues as they occur.
Exactly. And we, in our country, I don't know if you agree, but I feel we've lost a lot of that.
Yes, we have. I mean, nowadays, if I open the door for you when we're going out, I'm liable to be called a sexist.
Yeah. Or people look at you like you have two heads.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I was raised Southern or just raised right, but you did things like that.
Yep.
But nowadays, that's not acceptable, and for some people. I still do it if it offends you. Sorry.
I think that's great. I think that's great. So, in my estimation, what this all boils down to, we have a smaller military. We are less protected. Last week, I read a little clip, and I get this little thing on my phone that blasts me a news break. Because I'm nosy and I need to know what's going on.
Well, I want to hear other opinions.
I know. But anyway, they stated that in, I think it was part Syria and part Afghanistan, there were 6 or 7 important I can't remember what their titles were. Dignitaries. Yeah. That were killed.
Mm-hmm.
And we were responsible. Okay, so my question, first of all, was, really? We're still there doing our thing?
Now, they were military targets. Keep that in mind. They were
I know.
military assets.
Yeah.
You say dignitaries. We're not talking about elected official. We're talking leadership of the military.
No, because they stated that they were government, they not necessary military, but governmental dignitaries. And so my first question was, okay, we're still there, we're still doing our thing. And then the second sentence stated, we must now be on high alert.
Yeah.
Because they are going to retaliate.
Now, that wasn't the attack that Israel did and took out some of the leadership in, I think it was Syria.
I don't know, Todd, because they didn't state that. What they were trying to do with that little news blast, was to warn the American people that they would retaliate.
We're not ready.
And I know.
We're not.
And I said, oh my gosh.
And
So you know what? We left there. Okay, all of a sudden, right out of the blue, we left there. We abandoned that Bagram Air Base with all of the goodies on it, and left it there for them to use and kill and play with in 2021. Thank you, Mr. President. And now all of a sudden we're told that we have to be aware.
And that's a big part of the problem. And if you recall, starting, 2017, Democrats started campaigning on open borders. And we all know what happened. 2020 come around, they got in, they stopped enforcing our current border laws. And the CIA and the FBI have both testified in the past 2 months on Capitol Hill that they know there are terrorists that have gotten into this country.
Well, of course.
They just don't know where they are.
How can they not get in? They can just walk wherever they wish.
See, Iran will not take us on head on because they know they'd lose. But they love playing these proxy wars, and now that, thanks to this administration, they have the funding in hand to do so. That's why Israel was attacked. But what they can do is it can fund any of those cells that have made it across our porous border.
Right.
And that puts us all in danger.
Well, I think, it's like It's like a process with them. Individually, we have illegals who have entered our country and they have broken the law, harmed people, done whatever. Okay, and this is individual, individual happenings. So, and I find if you go back to 9/11, prior to, I did a lot of reading about that, and there were individual happenings at that time as well. And it was almost like a process because first the small stuff and then bam. So it scares the heck out of me.
It should scare everyone.
I worry for my kids and my grandkids. And
Well, and we have some coming in here. One of the biggest things that scares me about a lot of this is, you remember when they first opened up, the Biden administration opened up the border, they had an app where the people could sign up. Well, guess what? We're paying aircraft to fly to these other countries, pick these people up, fly them in here, and they say, oh, there's nothing secret about it, but we're not going to tell you where these planes landed. Did you know that there are reports right now that one of those aircraft with these criminal aliens on it landed in Wilmington?
I'm not surprised.
And
That's a whole nother story too. We're going to have to get into that too. But here's the thing. I know that you don't, and I certainly don't want to experience another 9/11.
no, absolutely not.
But I'm afraid that
It's coming.
I think so.
Christopher Wray, FBI director, said that it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah.
They know it's coming.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. They have to be, the FBI and the CIA and all, NSA, they all have to be correct 100% of the time. Terrorists only have to be right once.
Exactly.
That's how 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
And there are things that people can do themselves, and especially in Brunswick County. This is something a lot of people don't realize. We have a lot of, for lack of a better word, transient residents, whether they're snowbirds or halfbacks,
Right.
whichever,
Yeah. Like
that
me.
aren't here for several months out of the year.
Right.
So there's nobody watching at home. To the citizens of Brunswick County, I would simply say, get to know your neighbors a little bit. Get their phone numbers.
And I would suggest that they specifically have somebody look after their house.
Yeah, or just tell the neighbor, say, hey, we're going to Connecticut for a month.
Right.
Mind, keep an eye out. Here's my phone number. And the thing is, because we've only had one situation of potential squatters in Brunswick County, according to the sheriff's department, and what it was they tried to occupy a house, but the neighbor knew that the people that owned the house was out of town, called them and said, hey, there's some people over at your house. Are they supposed to be there? And they said, no. So they called the sheriff's department, and they went over, arrested them all for trespassing.
How do you suppose they find out about these houses?
It's not hard. You can drive through any neighborhood, and you can figure out who's there
So
and who's not.
they case it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not rocket science.
I know.
I mean, I can sit there and look around my neighborhood, and even though neighbors I don't know, I get accustomed to seeing which vehicles are in their driveway and stuff like that. And whether you're actually watching it and trying to learn from it, or you're just aware of your surroundings, you start to learn, hey, they usually get home around 5, 6, that sort of thing and all. If all of a sudden you see no vehicles there and no traffic there, and you wander up and look in the garage window and there's no cars in there, and they hadn't been for a week, that's a good target.
Yep.
That's an easy target.
That's so sad. There are so many things that
And 2 people posting on social media.
I know.
Oh, we're going back to Connecticut
Yeah.
for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, well, their
Yeah.
place here is gone.
Yeah, that's very sad. And I do want to discuss that at length as well. And I think we might have to ask our wonderful sheriff to join us one time, and we will talk about that. But today, folks, we're talking about our military and the lack of, and bases and the lack of, in my opinion. And I would like to once again give you our email should you wish to email some ideas or feedback on today's show. It's very simple. It's allthingsbrunswickcounty@gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from you, so please do.
But, I guess kind of what my point was is just be a good neighbor. That's what we used to call it. It's just being neighborly. It's not being nosy, but just
We always did.
looking out for each other.
Yeah, for sure.
It's growing up in a military town, like if my dad was deployed or something, and the lawnmower wouldn't start, the neighbor would come over and help out.
Well, of course.
We did things like that. We kind of got away from it. The social aspect of America is kind of dying along with our military.
I know.
And we can't afford to lose either one.
No.
So
I agree with you. Things have certainly changed, and not necessarily for the better. And, I have little people that I love dearly, and I want them to be able to grow up and have a good life. And it's getting scarier by the day.
it is. And my grandson will soon be 2 years old, so I'm a little bit concerned about what kind of future he has.
Absolutely. I think about that a lot. What are they going to have to face? And let's trust me, if they continue to go like they are, it's going to be a very scary world.
Well, and you look at China. China has a, their 100-year plan, world domination. Why are we treating them like a developing country?
I know.
That just makes no sense.
One of the best, absolute best House bills that our wonderful David Rouser was involved in last year was the fact that they voted that there would be no more land in North Carolina sold to the Chinese. And I am just so happy about that. Unfortunately, they already own
A sizable amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I would suggest that all the states kind of look into that.
Well, especially in the Midwest where you got the big wheat fields and stuff like that. But they've also been buying land next to our bases.
Right.
Now,
Yep.
that's kind of goes back to what I was saying about looking out for your neighbors, because scoping out an area is not hard to do. Well, if you own the land right next to the base, it's really easy.
That's common sense.
Yeah.
That is known as common sense, folks.
Yeah, and they do it under these shell companies, basically.
Yes.
To try to shield them
Yep.
from their ownership. But when they start investigating the ownership, that's when they find out, oh, this is, China is buying this land.
Right.
Well, do we really want China to control our food supply? They already control all our medicine.
Yes, they do.
And that was one thing that Trump was trying to fix, was get it to where especially our antibiotics and all, were made in the United States. But in Biden's first day in office, he wrote an executive order reversing that. So that's not being done. So China still has the monopoly on that. And if we have a medical breakout in this country, that's a major issue.
It is.
Especially now that they're having outbreaks all over the country, measles, chickenpox, all kinds of things, because all these criminal aliens coming into the U.S., they've never been vaccinated.
Exactly. They've never, and
But yet, you got to have a vaccination.
yeah.
Thankfully, the Supreme Court into that.
And on that note, we're going to pay some more bills. We'll be right back, folks. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, attorney at law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you are a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, folks, to All Things Brunswick. Todd and I are having a great discussion today on our military and the lack of. I just want to say that I am so proud of each and every person who puts themselves in harm's way by joining one of the branches of our military. We are what we are because of you. And we have what we have because of you.
And that's our freedoms.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I thank you so much, so much. I get really sentimental about this stuff because I can't even imagine going through what they go through, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So it's very scary. But anyway, we have had a great discussion, and I am hoping that for your sake, for our sake, for our country's sake, things will change very soon for the better.
Well, and I think that if we can get a good change of leadership, not just the White House, but in Congress and all, we can get people in there that understand the military's role.
Yeah.
They are warriors. They are there to protect us and protect our rights. A lot of people don't realize this, but our police are basically the same thing.
Yes.
They're just not going into foreign countries.
Exactly.
Even National Guardsmen go to foreign wars. A lot of people don't realize that. They think the National Guard only comes out in a disaster, and that's not the case.
That's a very interesting point to make, because you're right. They play a very important part, you know, in our military freedoms.
My brother-in-law went from active duty military to guard, and as guard, he did more time in combat than he did when he was active duty.
Yep.
So a lot of people don't realize that, but just because they're called the guard doesn't mean they're not real soldiers. They are.
No, absolutely not. And we have deployed guard many times. We did it. We did just in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So
And the thing is most people see them when we have natural disasters, hurricanes, earthquakes, whatever. But like right now, they're being deployed to our southern border because the president refuses to close the border. And so these are issues that are impacting Brunswick County.
right.
We need to fix kind of the mindset in Washington about our military. This isn't a social program. These people are here to fight to protect our rights
Exactly.
and to protect our nation. And like I said, police are doing that on the local level.
Yep.
and they may not see quite as much gore, but you wouldn't want to know all the things some of
Oh.
our local police have seen.
Absolutely not.
In all fairness to them, they get PTSD too.
Yes.
So people attacking them all the time on the media and defund the police and all that, man, just knock it off. These people put their lives on the line for us.
We have many, many folks to thank for what they do for us. And if you see service personnel, please thank them for their service. Our first responders are also very valuable, so thank them as well.
Yeah.
So, Todd, who are we going to have next week on the show?
Was fortunate enough to get Mayor Weinkoff from Boiling Spring Lakes.
How exciting.
So if you have any questions, please email us your questions. We'll be more than glad to ask him while we have him on.
Yes, Jeff Weinkoff, the mayor of Boiling Spring Lakes, will join us. He will update us on the progress of the dams.
And the road pavings.
And the road pavings and any other issues that are pertinent to Boiling Spring Lakes. And I would love to be able to offer him questions from you. So if you will email me your questions at allthingsbrunswickcounty@gmail.com, I will be happy to share them with him.
And I'm not going to give him a heads up.
Absolutely not.
No.
Mayor Weinkoff's a great guy, and he's done
really is.
he's done a great deal for the city, and we are very happy to have him in place there.
And he's very easy to deal with and always ready to listen. He may not give you the answers you want, but he'll give you honest answers.
Yeah.
And I can at least respect that.
Right.
So-
And he cares about our city. And the exciting thing going on is that the dam is being reconstructed, and once again we'll have beautiful lakes.
Yeah. We'll soon have our lakes restored. I don't think it will be much longer. They are making tremendous progress. The weather has been very good.
Oh,
But
I know.
On the same note, we can get one really bad storm come in here and set them back
Yeah.
months. But
Well, I think we have to take that into consideration when you're doing a project like
oh yeah,
this.
oh
But
yeah.
And let's see, in the future, excuse me, on All Things Brunswick, we're going to be doing some remotes. And if you are interested in having us come out to your business and hanging out for an hour or so, talking to the folks that come by, I would love to hear from you. Once again, allthingsbrunswickcounty@gmail.com. Well, this has been a great show.
Yes, it has.
I wanted to share with our audience the facts that I had found concerning our military. To me, that has been a very important thing. So,
I don't think average people that aren't involved in the military realize just how
Exactly.
bad things have gotten.
yeah.
Things were pretty bad after Vietnam. Believe it or not, we're probably worse off now than we were then.
I think so. We have less military servicemen. So, anyway, we love you. We really appreciate you joining us on All Things Brunswick next Tuesday, 6 o'clock. Todd Osborne, Mary Stillwell. Please come back.
Y'all have a good evening.